Big story, another big story out of Canada. It's the talk all week. Don Cherry, a Canadian icon, he made some statements Saturday night during Coach's Corner. They were widely perceived to single out what he thought were immigrants for not wearing poppies. And just to let our American listeners know, we have Veterans Day. It's Remembrance Day in Canada. A lot of people wear the poppy on their lapel. And Cherry come on, and he was kind of pissed off that he didn't see more of them. And he referenced like downtown Toronto, and at one point said "you people," and it was basically talking. Like I said, everyone assumed it's about immigrants, which who the hell knows if you're an immigrant or third generation, anyways. There was a lot of heat about it. He really didn't backpedal. They ended up firing him. Now he's saying he should have said everybody, which doesn't really jibe with what he said. Either way, Biz, huge story in Canada. Don Cherry's gone. What's your take, buddy?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of takes about a lot of the situations that arose from this, because this can't just be like, hey, what are your thoughts? It has to be essentially a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, where do we begin? I think that no one won on Saturday when everything was said, right? Because ultimately there are probably a group of people that did feel like they were discriminated against and maybe shunned away from a game where, yeah, maybe it does have a history of not being very inclusive, right? But I think that if anyone really looks into it, we're definitely progressing, and maybe there's sometimes things that are said by a small group of people that maybe make those people think that we don't all want that. But you're listening from a popular hockey podcast, and I'll speak on behalf of our fan base. I don't think anyone doesn't want every fucking nationality or background playing the game of hockey. We want it all to grow. And that's why it was unfortunate what happened on Saturday, because like I said, everyone lost. Like Don Cherry, I believe he's a hockey icon. Has he made some and said some things along the way that I don't personally agree with? Yeah, he's an opinionated guy. He's very old school. And sometimes I do think he has a bit of a jaded perception based on what maybe he has personally experienced. And sometimes, like it goes back to his poppy comments. This could have been easily just to set off by Don Cherry driving downtown Toronto on the way to the studio, and he maybe sees a group of immigrants who aren't wearing a poppy.
Well, what he perceives to be immigrants,
or what he perceives to be immigrants. Because remember, he's an older guy, right?
Absolutely.
So that might have just set him off. Where it's like, from every background, there are people who don't respect what others have sacrificed to where they are. He could have easily just been a block over and started paying attention to the street where it was a group of white kids. So for him the wording he used sucked. It did. It was just like a little bit like, oh God. And he doesn't necessarily have the best history of not singling out and grouping groups of individuals into a certain box. I mean, he's been saying like, Russians are soft or Euros are soft. And it's like, I've played with some of the Euros that are the fucking toughest in the game. Like Michael Roosevelt, Nicholas Jarmelsson's a Euro. That guy fucking eats pucks, right? So it's just sometimes, he's in a place where he's got a lot of responsibility, and I think it's just like we're seeing a bit of a pattern here where he was a bit outspoken, and I think initially he didn't want to apologize. So I know that now he's saying, I didn't like my wording and stuff. I think it was a too little too late, and fucking Sportsnet was in a very difficult situation. And listen, people are saying it's a financial decision. No, it's not. Because a lot of people who watch Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada love Don Cherry, and maybe some of those people do feel that sometimes, maybe immigrants aren't showing enough respect to veterans, where it's like, guys, give your head a shake. There's just people in general, and maybe those people who did come over are uneducated on what maybe people did sacrifice for what they get to enjoy now, because there's obviously a reason that immigrants do come over here. It's for a better way of life. And that's a fact. And Canada's a place where it's a nice place to live, and a lot of people are allowed in. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to make everyone feel involved, and we got to stop pointing the finger, man. It's because it's bad on both sides.
Yeah, well said. So my thing about this is that Don Cherry, like, saying that, he shouldn't have said that, and what killed him is saying "you people." In my opinion, he said "you people." my issue with all of this is that I truly believe there is a double standard out there, and in a sense of the fact that Don Cherry, we've talked about before, RA, you said it years ago, this is how it was going to end. He was going to say something. Okay?
It was a ticking time bomb.
If you were to guess that this is what he said, would that be the something? I don't think anyone would have ever imagined it would have been this. They would have thought it was something way worse, okay? Times have changed. He grew up in a time, and his whole European comments, or Europeans are soft. Now, I'm not great with vocabulary words. That's xenophobic.
Yes.
Okay, so xenophobic, I will agree. Don Cherry has shown plenty of signs of that. Where in the 1960s and 70s, Swedes were considered soft by tough hockey Canadians. He's lived that life. He's thought that. He's said things that have riled people up, and he's gone with it. All right? Xenophobic, yes. If you're going to tell me Don Cherry is a racist, I think you're fucking full of shit.
I think you're out of your mind.
I think you're full of shit. And I see all these things and all these reports about this racist guy. Do you know what Don Cherry has done for veterans, police, anyone out there protecting Canada, putting their life on the line? The tears he's shown in describing fallen soldiers in his career in Hockey Night in Canada, the money he's raised for families of soldiers that have been everywhere. Don Cherry's done more for veterans in Canada than any other living Canadian. And he's made an impact his entire life helping people. The way he says things is foolish sometimes, okay? You people, right? I will believe he was thinking of immigrants. I will. And I also think that if when he looks back on it, he probably is thinking about a white millennial kid who plays video games and is on his phone all day and doesn't give a fuck about the veterans. He cares so much about the military and what people do that are really risking their life that he thinks you have to wear a poppy to show that. That's not true. I'm not going to say that it doesn't matter and it isn't a great thing when you do wear a poppy, because it is only showing pride and showing how appreciative you are for these people that have done these things. But if you're not wearing one, I'm not going to say you don't care about veterans and you don't. That's not fair to say. That's him being
That's
old
how
school.
passionate he is about it. And,
Now
and I'm okay with him being that passionate about it. It was just how he signaled there's plenty of non-immigrants not wearing poppies.
Exactly. And so the other issue for me is that all these people out there, the racist comments, this evil man who had to go. RA wrote a blog in which it was very well written. You are a good writer. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the things you said, but I'm cool with you saying them. I'm very open to people believing and doing whatever they want. There isn't enough of that. My issue is the double standard, the Prime Minister of Canada and the blackface, okay? All of these Canadians who voted for this guy, in my mind, if you're also saying Don Cherry is a racist and deserves to be fired, that's a fucking double standard to me, okay? And if you look at what's going on in the part of the blog, and I bring that up that RA did not mention that in the blog because he was talking about Don Cherry, and RA also never used the word racist, and he told me he doesn't think Don Cherry's a racist. But when you're able to look past somebody doing something that pisses you off, that would piss you, if you're able to look past somebody in power doing something like that, because he's on your side.
Correct.
But then the guy on the other side says something that you consider horrible as well. How can you then call him out if you're not calling out the guy that you believe in?
Because he benefits your ideas and the way you views.
And if you look at RA, the part I really disagree is RA says he doesn't believe in cancel culture. And I'll let you speak, obviously. I want to talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cancel culture has come about recently. I don't know enough of the beginning of it. I know that now it is, former President Obama talked about this recently. It's about the fact that if you don't agree with what somebody is saying, you can just do as much as you can online on social media to get these people canceled. Comedians talk about it a lot, in which they try to get canceled by people because they're writing jokes that are meant to offend, because people laugh at jokes that offend people. And nowadays there are plenty of examples of the governor in Virginia, I don't even can't think of the guy's name, who did do blackface and was just made to be the all-time villain because that's a horrible thing to do. But then up in Canada, the guy who does it and all the people in Canada that are upset about the other thing, they don't care. That doesn't bother them.
Right.
And one more thing. Like Megyn Kelly is a reporter in the U.S. She talked about blackface, how back in the day, it was considered okay if you were dressing up in a Halloween costume, which might have been the case, which is horrible. It's not correct. It should never be done. She was fired over that. But these people in Canada who want Don Cherry and get him out of there over those comments, also electing a guy who did blackface, which is worse than whatever Don Cherry said, to me is a double standard that it drives me insane.
And to go back on that,
and I'd like to know how you don't think it exists.
I don't think that he's a racist either. He's based
How many people do though up there? A lot.
Right, but I think that what most people are upset about is the fact that is something that would ruin somebody who doesn't have hardcore liberal views, whereas they can excuse it once again because they share the same idea. So it's like there's such a hypocrisy now. It's like the fucking and I mean, if we're getting to the Deadspin thing with Barstool, there was a guy who was writing hit pieces on Barstool about how they were sexist, and then they went inside of comments that he'd left on someone else's blog, and he'd made jokes about like rape jokes and stuff where if it was somebody at Barstool doing, he would have killed them for it. So and they're all writing hit pieces where it's like, yo, you guys have done something just the same, if not worse than what I've done, and you're trying to tell me that I'm a bad person. Like, let's just kind of realize that we've each maybe made a mistake and just stop being so fucking hard on each other. It's like a fucking game of like you're a bad person. It's like you're like, I have the more high ground because, oh my God, you said something worse than I did. It's just like, just shut the fuck up. You can't even get anything done anymore because everyone's just trying to get everyone fired who's in a higher position.
Obama's quotes about this are
10 out of 10.
It was awesome. But all right, go ahead.
Yeah. First off, the Trudeau comparisons, not just from you, but a lot of people making them online. I don't know enough about Canadian politics to bring the Trudeau stuff in. I know he got wore blackface several times. That to me is kind of irrelevant to the Don Cherry stuff. I mean, maybe there is a double standard there. It's not what I'm really talking about here. So I don't know enough about Trudeau to really comment. As far as the cancel culture comment, a lot of people are like, oh, that's BS, RA. I think what it is, it's just culture now. I think cancel culture sometimes is just consequences where there weren't consequences for things that people said and did 25, 30 years ago. But people who didn't have a voice then have a voice now because the internet technology has opened up like more people that, like I said, were voiceless before. So there's consequences.
How were they voiceless?
Because basically
so everyone was voiceless before the internet.
I wouldn't say everybody. I think.
Well, to say the internet now allows people to make their voices heard, then what
okay,
was
in America,
before?
America, the dominant culture is white culture. So anything basically on TV, media, news is really from a white perspective. Whereas now when you have the internet, you go on Twitter or any other site, you get different perspectives from different people. Because of that, people are maybe they're held responsible to different standards now. So it's not, cancel that guy. I know people do it online. Cancel. Now, I'll bring up a name. A year ago, cancel culture, Louis C.K. There's a guy everyone thought was dead. The guy's torn now. He's selling out buildings, everything. So if cancel culture was
I think what happened with him.
Louis C.K.
Hold on.
His is more of the sexual thing. So that's a really tough comparison.
Or even another one, James Gunn, the guy who directed Guardians of the Galaxy, the first two. They dug up old tweets on him, and Sony acted like a bunch of pussies, and they're like, he's not directing the next one. Because people like basically try to say he was a pedophile. They were ugly, shitty jokes, but they were bad. They were jokes. And they fucking like, you can't direct the next one. Well, they backtracked and they're like, okay, we screwed up. We shouldn't have fighted. They overreacted. So
what about Kevin Hart in he couldn't host that award show for a tweet 10 years ago. That is, to me, cancel culture. That is causing someone to not be able to do a job because of something that was said 10 years ago that he had priorly apologized for. And I don't understand the fact that to you, it's a different opinion. I respect it. I just don't understand how you don't see that happening to people who are saying things that because some people disagree with, they're done.
I guess we just disagree. I don't think it's a real thing that cancel culture, everybody gets canceled. I know people complain online. If you don't go online, you don't hear a lot of that stuff. I don't think there are really any like innocent victims that are getting like losing jobs because of. I just think there are more consequences now than there were before, and people have to adapt. If you're a good comedian, you'll adapt. You won't have to worry about getting canceled. Like the dude at Saturday Night Live, they probably shouldn't have hired him if that guy was saying that stuff on a podcast. Then you could say it was a joke or whatever. But when they're hiring an Asian guy the same day, and this guy's saying F and I don't want to say the word, it's offensive about Asian people, then it's like, fuck, Saturday Night dropped the ball there. That wasn't cancel culture. That was a guy who probably shouldn't have been fucking hired in the first place.
I'll say this. I think that right now, as far as the cancel culture is concerned, I think that anytime somebody is in a pretty high position nowadays, I mean, whether it be politically, whether it be in fucking media, news, whether it be in sports, I feel like anytime something slightly negative comes out, this cancel culture, these individuals, they try to cling on to it and bring that person down. There's no more like in this situation,
people pile on, dude.
They pile on. They just want to bring you down. And when the Don Cherry thing happened, I was like, okay, I truly believe, I think that this is the thing that's going to do him in. I wasn't crazy about it. I wish he would have just had a sincere apology, where maybe he could have patched things up. But hey, maybe at the time he didn't want to change his thinking and he was being stubborn about it. Shifting away from that, so I was doing hometown hockey, and Ron MacLean has to be talked about in all this as well. And it's tough because
surprising quotes from Don. Well, not surprising, but that is a ugly divorce in a sense,
right? Because now even today came out where Don basically said that he felt his partner threw him under the bus. Some of you listening think that as well. Whit, I think you're on that side of the fence. I was with him. I could see how much it was affecting him. Ron MacLean ended up having to work a 12-hour day doing the whole hometown hockey while dealing with this, while trying to think of what he could say as an apology, because anytime Ron does something of significance, he puts a lot of thought into it. And you could just tell he wasn't that present with me that day because he felt like he'd hurt a lot of people. Okay? So he loves what he does with Sportsnet, because that hometown hockey is something that he built from scratch, where he thought like, hey, I genuinely thought that me nodding was going to be perceived as I was agreeing with Don Cherry in his comments, when Don Cherry's comments are his own comments. If Ron wasn't necessarily down with them, that's his fucking opinion. Another aspect of this that people who continue to pile on don't understand is in TV, Ron MacLean's considered a bus driver, okay? So when you're the bus driver, you have an earpiece in your ear. I am never a bus driver for two reasons. It's fucking very difficult to drive the bus, and especially when you're on TV and things have to kind of run on time, right? Like we had a 6-minute segment. It's national broadcast. There's ads that are sold. You have 6 fucking minutes. So during those segments,
I work on TV.
During those segments, Ron is being talked to in his ear by the truck. And the truck is saying, okay, we're talking about the poppy. And keep in mind, Don Cherry comes in and probably says, hey, I'm talking about the poppy. And Ron MacLean's like, okay, cool. We're not running the segment before we run the fucking segment. He goes off the top. So as Don Cherry was saying this, I asked him, he goes, and he's like, Biz, he goes, I genuinely, I was half listening because I'm listening to the truck and I'm nodding along because I'm hearing them saying, hey, changing the subject in 15, going to commercial in a minute.
Right.
So his brain is fucking
he's
everywhere.
Almost on autopilot in a way.
I've had an earpiece in before and somebody started talking in my ear on live TV. Yeah. I fucking dead stopped.
Oh yeah,
I was like, I was like, somebody's talking to me, like, what, legit. I fucking froze on TV.
Like,
so
he's been doing it for 4 years.
So he has to, while Don's talking, and then all of a sudden the other person starts talking in his ear. He's now switched over to listening to the truck. Okay, so as he's nodding, and at the end when he says, and he gives the thumbs up, he ain't fucking endorsing what Don just said because he only heard half of it.
He was wrapping it up.
And everyone listening right now, or 99% of you, they won't know that because they've never been there. So once again, when you hear about these situations, before you start piling on, you need to make sure you got every fucking variable down and every which way how things might have gone for certain individuals. Ron had to protect himself, and if you guys think that in that position he should go down with the ship with Don Cherry under those circumstances, well, I disagree with you. And I really like this sincere apology. And once again, if you do think that he did throw his partner under the bus, I'm not gonna fight with you online. I'm not gonna kick up dust. I'm just gonna defend Ron MacLean because there's another guy who has done a fucking lot to grow the game. He loves everyone. He is inclusive. He is not a bit racist. He's not how do you say it? Xenophobic. Xenophobic. He's not. I walked around with him all day, and he fucking shook every person's hand. He gave everybody his time. He is a wonderful human being. That whole staff that helps out Hometown Hockey is. And once again, you're hearing my experience and what I saw through my eyes. And if you can't trust me enough to think that I don't know right from wrong and who a good human is and don't, well, then I guess I can just say fuck you.
Mic drop. You want to say that the whole, like, hockey is for everyone. I think that is such a good thing. So the worst thing that comes out of this is people feeling like they're not welcome in the game because of comments like that is not the case. And I think at the beginning of all this, Biz, you said that it is getting better. But still, it kind of sucks from my point of view that a legend in hockey, Don Cherry, Hockey Night in Canada, Rock'em Sock'em, you know, the way it ended is just kind of sad. I mean, in what he'll be thought of the rest of his life is hopefully not for these comments, but for what the good he's done for people. And that was my whole thing. And like I said at the beginning, saying you people was not fair at all. So I guess we can move on.
Well, there's one thing that kind of came from this, and there was a show in Canada, and we're gonna run the clip right now. There was a lady who was obviously not pleased with Don Cherry, as you know, some weren't. So I'm gonna let you listen to this clip, and I don't know if she was trying to like fight back, but to me this is just as disgusting as what Don said, if not worse. So here you go.
And they all tended to be white boys who weren't, let's say, very nice. They were not generally thoughtful. They were often bullies. Their parents were able to afford to put them, spend $5,000 a year on minor hockey.
Well, there you have it. That was Jessica Allen from The Social. Now, I'm sure a lot of you listening are pretty fired up by those comments because, they pretty much put an entire group of people, white men, in a category, and that was that. Okay, so to me, I'm not offended by that. I think she's fucking dead wrong because I saw women replying saying, I have 3 sons in minor hockey. We just did a food drive for veterans in need, and like went on where it's like, yeah, like once again, there's shitty people and there are good people. Stop grouping
in every walks of life.
In every walks of life. So you just shit on a guy for grouping individuals into one category, and then you just did the exact same, but with fairly harsher words. Like she was going at hockey culture.
She's saying because there was a couple white hockey player bullies in her high school that is a horrible culture, whereas Don Cherry, because he saw a couple immigrants in downtown Toronto without a pop, he was stupid enough to say all immigrants aren't wearing
Correct.
it. What is the difference? And it's like that is the type of thing right there that pisses me off.
So will she get fired?
God, no, because
probably
she's
not
on the other side.
She's on the because now there has become a bit of an issue where it's once again back to the double standards / hypocrisy of it all. So
there are scumbag hockey players out there. There are great hockey players out there as people. There are scumbag oil workers. There are great guys who work in the oil field. It is the way of life. Everywhere you go, there'll be dirtbags. Everywhere you go, you'll meet great people. And I personally believe there's a lot more good people than bad people in the world. But when you try to go back and forth, it ends up to me making zero sense.
And I know that we're associated with Barstool and we have some listeners who are very passionate hockey fans and are probably upset at what you heard. Instead of going online and attacking her, maybe write her and say, hey, I'm sorry for what your experience was and those few fucking assholes that maybe gave you a bad perspective of what the hockey culture and what we're all about. Reach out to her and just say, but it's not all like that. There are a lot of good people involved, and I'll even extend an invite to a hockey game. I'll fly you out to Arizona. You can come watch a game. We can have a in-depth conversation about it. I'll even pay for dinner. Instead of attacking, let's show them what we're about. Like I'm done with the back and forth of all this bullshit, because no one's going to understand each other in any situation is if it just continues to be finger pointing and it's like he said, she said, blah, blah, blah. So Jessica, I hope you take me up on my offer, and hopefully we can change your mind frame, and maybe you can go back on your show and tell all the people that were clapping for you when you said what you did, which was very disappointing. Maybe you can change their outlook on what hockey culture really is. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and if our listeners, do want to engage, be an adult about it. You don't have to call people names or be insulting because you're talking to a woman or whatever. Just
that kind of goes into the entire end of this is you can be very, very passionate about anything in life without disparaging the people who don't agree with you.
Yeah.
That is the easiest thing in the world to do. I love this. I care about this. This is what I believe in. But I don't hate you if you don't believe in it.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. So
people can argue, and just on a personal note, like I wrote in the blog, I have a long history with Don Cherry. He was the first Bruins teams I fell in love with. He was the coach. I followed him a long time, and like what said earlier, this was easily predictable. The guy's 85 years old. He's from an old generation who, just from a very pragmatic point of view, the demographics in North America have changed immensely. Immigration patterns have changed, and older people sometimes don't deal with it as well as the younger generation. I think that's an element of it too.
You get stubborn when you're old,
and you get stubborn, and you put whatever you double down on stuff. And I don't think this is how he'll be remembered. It's the end, and I think he was very good for a long time. I think he's been kind of coasting for the last couple of years. It's it's not a tragedy. It's a guy, like I said, they probably had him on a little too long anyways, and it ended in an unfortunate manner, but it is what it is. And he's not a bad person. He's done a lot of good. This chapter's over, and I think we can move on.
And would you agree, and last thing, would you agree that you don't think he's racist?
No.
I don't think he would treat someone with different skin color or from a different background differently in person. He may have a shitty view on what he thinks their entire population is, but I don't think he would give them the shirt off their back if they were in need and he was in the position to do so.
No, I don't think he is. And I think that's a word that's losing its power because it gets used so much nowadays. I mean, I think there are, and, obviously I'm a white guy and it's not like I've had to deal with it, but I think there are levels to it. There's bigotry, there's prejudice, and, that racism is the worst of it. And I think he might have some, obviously with the Russians, the Swedes, he obviously has some bigotry issues, but that's not necessarily racist. And I don't think he's racist, and I didn't write he was. But anyways,
we've gone on a while, and I don't know how many people stayed to tune into that, but it was nice to have a long discussion about it because, like, talking about that on short, how do you say it?
Notice.
Short form media is very difficult, especially Twitter. I do not want to talk about this on Twitter at all.